And so our first question, just to start things off, is to Dr. Jen Lee, and we'd like her just to give us an overview of what is artificial intelligence.
Okay, hi everyone. So I didn't prepare slides that I teach AI, so learn some history about AI. So AI is a computer science subject to create intelligent machines that act like humans. So it involves developing systems that can do things requiring human intelligence, such as decision making, problem solving, learning, and language understanding. So the modern AI appeared in 1950s with the development of electronic computers. So we know Alan Turing is one of the fathers of AI. So he proposed the Turing test to determine if a machine has intelligence. So we all know the story. So we put a machine and human being in a room, and outside the room is a human interrogator, and he typed questions to ask the inside. If he could not distinguish if the answer is from a machine or from a computer, then the computer is intelligent. This is not definition, but it gives lots of directions of AI, including, language understanding, image understanding, logic learning. So that is the foundation of AI definition. So in the 1960s and the 70s, AI research experienced a very good period known as AI summer. So during this time, AI research is mainly about using logic and reasoning. So there are lots of successful development of expert systems using logic approach. So the systems mimic the decision making of human experts. So they solve complex problems by reasoning over the knowledge represented using the human experts' expertise. So during this period of time, so we see lots of expert system, and we also saw the development of natural language processing, which enable a computer to understand and generate human language. However, this process slowed down afterwards, especially in the 1980s, due to the lack of funding and technology limitations. So this period was called AI winter because of the hot AI summer, and there are lots of fundings and goes to the AI research. So during the Cold War, as an example, the U.S. government was really interested in automatic translation using machines. They are curious about translate Russian documents using machines. However, AI failed on this. A famous example was the translation. The translation is the spirit is willing and the flesh is weak. So it translated back and forth with Russian. It became the vodka is good, but the meat is rotten. So the government realized the machine translation is not accurate and it's expensive. So they thought that human translator is much more convenient, and lots of funding stopped at the stage. And the AI winter ended in the 1990s. So the AI research shifted towards machine learning since then, especially in early 2000s, when deep learning gets lots of attention, and the use of GPUs and parallel computings, it can accelerate the training of deep neural network. So deep learning is neural network with lots of layers. So today AI is so popular, it's everywhere and used in so many industries, domains, including healthcare, finance, manufacturing, and entertainment. And more recently, as Stacey mentioned, the ChatGPT is making a big splash across the world because it gives AI an interface to the general public, so everybody can chat to AI and see how powerful, how intelligent AI is, although the technologies has been there for years. So the development of AI continues to shape our world, and we believe that it holds a bright future. So this is a little bit introduction of AI.
Our second question is just to get kind of a sense of how artificial intelligence might be used right now in classrooms. And Dr. Ann Denton, Dr. Jen Lee, and some of our other panelists as well may have some things to share. And so we'll let them share some ideas about ways that we can use artificial intelligence in our classrooms.
Yeah, so my teaching is in databases and data mining, which is overlaps strongly with machine learning. So it's natural that a lot of things that are part of AI would apply to the things that I teach. I have worked with precision agriculture, bioinformatics, and any of those fields, of course, do have predictive tasks, and there are needs for implementing things that are predictive in one way or another. And in practice, often those predictions require more than just statistics, and then they do require machine learning. They may require reasoning. So things that fit into the artificial intelligence area. ChatGPT, which was part of the motivation for this panel. In principle, it's the same kind of technology as Jen already explained. It's a deep learning network. So you would expect that it does the same thing. And then when it comes, for example, to classifying pictures, yes, it does very much the same kinds of predictions and could be useful in the same way. I do think that the way it's used has some features that are quite substantially different. And because of that, I have actually so far, I've used it a lot in class, but more in social applications than in actually getting something done. And this is, I mean, one of the obvious concerns is that students can show off something that ChatGPT wrote and claim that they wrote it themselves. Personally, there are some other things that I find actually even more concerning. The biggest one being that it doesn't provide references. I mean, Google has allowed question answering for a while, but in Google, if you use question answering, you'll get the references where the data came from. The lack of giving credit happens already one step even before the students, and I find that very concerning. Another thing I find very concerning is that things that were previously done using reasoning, ChatGPT basically reasons at the level of a 4-year-old, if that. I mean, it can do a little bit of reasoning, but it's really, really little. And I mean, that's why some of these strange things come from, like that when playing chess, it will no longer follow the rules and whatnot. And the third reason why I'm concerned is that because it has all unfairnesses of public data sort of baked into its algorithm, there's no way to ensure that it's fair either. So, and there's not even a way to test it. I mean, you have this with prediction algorithms, but with prediction algorithms, if it's a yes or no decision, you can test, is this thing fair? With ChatGPT, you cannot, and there have been strange things like people asking ChatGPT to write a function for predicting who will be a good scientist, and the result is if gender equals male and race equals white, then good scientist is yes, and otherwise it's true, it's no. Which, I mean, if you had a prediction algorithm, you could deal with that, but with just a free speech kind of application, you can try to prevent that, but it can't be complete. So, I mean, basically, I feel like for the past several decades, AI was very much sort of on this left-brained geek where you just not feel comfortable talking with it. Now we've sort of moved to the complete opposite end, and there is a risk if giving ChatGPT credence for more intelligence than it actually has. That's I guess so I mean, as far as my own classroom usage, I have let students do sort of a Turing test of sorts. So this test of can you distinguish ChatGPT from what a person writes. I let them come up with a question themselves, answer it themselves, and let ChatGPT answer it, and then I made a quiz out of all those answers. Yeah, in fairness, it was almost random. So ChatGPT actually was almost passed the Turing test on that. So it is good at making you believe that it's human, but that doesn't necessarily alleviate concerns.
Essentially, I think there are three issues related to AI. I think the immediate is how we ensure academic integrity. And I think one way, at least in my field, I'm planning to have the exams, especially the remote exams. We're going to be launching an asynchronous online program, is to have a software that locks the browser. And we're going to be working with publishers like McGraw-Hill is in Connect. So we're going to make sure that the browser is locked, and we have a camera tracking the students. So that's at least make sure that the work that the student is providing is the work from the student. That's one way to ensure to minimize external help, including from Czech. So that's an AI. So that's one sort of immediate impacts. And I think one thing that ChatGPT is going to affect, and AI in general, is like several fields that involve language, including computer programming. I think the software engineering, computer science, especially those who develop code, I think that's going to cause a big impact, because essentially experienced programmers are now using ChatGPT to write 80% of the code that they write. So, and I think they have to be probably the students coming out of the system have to be trained to this new reality. Because I tried last weekend, and essentially it's a superhuman ability. So I tell what I wanted to do, and anybody can be an outstanding programmer and a very fast programmer. So that's one aspect. In other words, it's going to affect how we educate, so that our students can learn the tools that they're actually going to use in the marketplace, and their competitors will use. So, and a third aspect that I see, it's a little farther in the future, is that I think artificial intelligence is going to enable the ideal model of education to actually be implemented, to be cost effective, which is one instructor per student. So we haven't been able to do that because it's not cost effective. But with AI, we'll finally be able to offer to an individual student an instruction. So guided in a manner that addresses the challenges and the difficulties that a specific student has. So, and I see maybe in a few 20 years, a department like mine with the same number, maybe with the same number of students, we could teach them with 1/3 of the faculty members, because we'll be essentially coordinating the process. But who's going to be doing all the teaching is software, artificial AI software that will be providing the instruction to the student and providing quizzes and tests until the student learns the skills that they have to learn. And I think that will also have better learning outcomes. But the only challenge is that these students are going to be coming out of the university with less skills than the AI that will be also training them. So that'll be one challenge that we have to address.
Any other panel members want to weigh in on this one?
I can add a little bit to that, kind of what Professor Limo mentioned, but I want to look at it from another perspective, and how it can help students kind of get things done while using their own knowledge. A lot of classes that I teach are project-based classes that the students have to design, manufacture, build, test a system or an assembly, and they have to apply what they've learned through 4 years of college. So there are many tasks that needs to be done, analyzing, designing, calculations, validation, a lot of those, which tools such as ChatGPT or other AI tools could be used as students to help complete some of those tasks. But eventually the students and teams are the one who have to put these together and kind of manage those tasks and see the project to the end. And these are the tools, current tools or future tools that the students have to use them and are getting introduced to the world. So when I look at it just as another tool that can help students kind of complete a task or complete a project, not necessarily just the concern and the cheating aspect of it. That's certainly there, but also there are some positive aspects of kind of teaching students how to properly use these tools to complete their projects and tasks.
So I have some more comments here. Actually, next semester in the fall, I'm already planning to use some AI tools, even though they are for instruction, even though they are still in the rudimentary phase, and they are provided by publishers. And I think in DSU just doesn't make sense for DSU to develop their own AI tools, because those tools are going to be used worldwide. And for instance, the publishers are the best suited for developing those tools. Like I'm going to be using tools from McGraw-Hill, tools like SmartBook, and I know Pearson has a kind of equivalent. But essentially the way it works is I'm going to assign part of the homework assignments would be I'm going to assign certain topics from the textbook that I'm going to teach, from the topics that my course. And the students are going to be given a sequence of problems that are going to be adapted to the ability of the student until the student can demonstrate that they can solve all related problems related to that topic, which means that they're going to have achieved the learning outcomes. And I think that's going to helps a lot with the instruction, because it cuts the volume of questions that these students come to the instructor. And the problem that I see is that many students do not ask the instructors. They do not ask me, and they come and take the exam and they do poorly in the exam. So if they had a tool that they could use to help give a feedback for them, such as a tool like SmartBook, that would be something. So I think that the trend is towards improving those tools, and they do not have instruction, just the adaptive problems. But I think in the future, they're going to have the sort of a little bit of an instruction aspect to it, like a small, short tutorials. And I think that will eventually phase out a lot of the lectures that we give, I think, in the classroom, I think.
Thank you for those answers. As we looked around and collected information, you can't really go a day without seeing articles and things coming across in our higher ed chronicles and different higher ed publications that come out. Like the people on our panel just said, it sounds like we have some cautious optimism around being able to incorporate some AI into our academic toolbox, and being able to help students and professors, being able to help them do the work that they need to do, as Dr. Lima and Dr. Mary just pointed out, seeing them as tools. But there are also some pieces that have come out in some of these articles around academics seeing some of these AI tools as a danger to authentic learning, fearing that students will take shortcuts to avoid difficulty of coming up with their own original ideas, not learning how to organize their thoughts or demonstrate their knowledge. And so my next question for the panel is, what challenges does AI present for instructors and students, and how can they be addressed? And I'm especially interested in hearing what Dr. Hassel, if she could kind of kick us off, because I know that's something that they're tackling because AI is possibly being used by students in their writing classes. And so we'll let Dr. Hassel start this one off.
Yeah, thanks. Sure. So as someone who is involved, it serves as our first year writing director and is involved in some groups at the national level, I'll share the website that's not totally publicly launched yet, but it's the kind of web presence for our task force, because these are obviously the questions that we're getting, and questions that I guess I hadn't quite even thought of, right, until I started working with this group. So your question is sort of like, well, what are the cautions? What are the concerns, I guess, or what are some potential issues? One of the things that I think ChatGPT is doing is, I'm of the kind of mindset of some of these think piece writers that I think it invites us to really think carefully about some of what we do, and whether the tasks that we are asking students to do are actually doing the thing that we think it is. And what I mean by that is, so Stacey said, well, having students think carefully through something or have original ideas. And I guess I would argue that I think a lot of the academic writing tasks that students are given don't actually require them to do that. And so one of the things, like, you can make ChatGPT perform particular kinds of writing that is like sort of formulaic and often shallow and doesn't have citations, et cetera. But what that makes me think of is then, if that passes for human writing in an academic context, then maybe we didn't ask students to do the right thing, right? We didn't ask them the right assignment that will allow them to really showcase their original thinking or tackle complex problems. And so that's kind of the part that's very interesting to me, is to think about in what ways does ChatGPT and the capacities it has ask us to think more about the kinds of writing we're asking students. Like, if a robot can do that writing, then maybe we need to sort of require something that helps us really understand what it is that humans need to do, right, as thinkers and writers and researchers. So one of the things that this group is doing is we were just kind of getting started with our work, and of course the 4C side, which is the Conference on College Composition and Communication, that's the group that I represent. We're interested in thinking about what are the issues, certainly related to academic integrity, related to authorly ethics, related to writerly integrity, but also what can ChatGPT as a tool help us do to support students' development sort of about rhetorical knowledge, about genre, about asking the right questions, about finding problems as a writer and then developing solutions. So I've just, even in the class I'm teaching this semester, it's a graduate class on composition theory. We started talking about ChatGPT, and that discussion just went, it was so rich and interesting. And I asked students to sort of try to get ChatGPT to produce the kind of thing that they wanted. And students were just really engaged with that activity of recognizing that ChatGPT will produce what I ask it, right? And for better or worse. And so it gave them some opportunities to think about, okay, what do I really want out of this text, right? I have to ask particular kinds of, I have to give ChatGPT certain kinds of instructions. I have to specify something about tone, about audience, about genre, about, so there's this kind of interesting tool that it can become to develop what we call, what's the metacognitive understanding of language. But the other piece I'd say that this group is working on, we've got the 4C side where we're thinking about, as writing teachers, as college composition instructors, what is ChatGPT and these other large language models? What issues and questions, are they raising, and what possible tools and resources do they provide? But the other piece is the MLA, so the Modern Language Association, which most people, unless you're a college teacher of foreign language or of literature, which is kind of their primary disciplinary role, you probably associate with MLA style, right? With the sort of, they set these guidelines around scholarly publishing, scholarly, giving credit. And so they're getting, what I understand, talking with their scholarly publications director, she's getting questions every day from folks that are like, does ChatGPT count as an author, right? Like, how do I cite it? How do I incorporate, when is MLA going to sort of weigh in on to tell us about how this counts as authorship? And so those are, I would just, start by saying those are like some of the questions and topics and issues that are happening on kind of my side disciplinarily, that are, certainly a little bit different maybe from what's happening over in engineering.
If I can jump in with some data, Stacey. In early February, EduCourse, a very popular educational platform, did conduct a quick poll that asked over 700 faculty members and administrators about what they think are the greatest opportunities for generative AI usage. 77% of them did think that it's going to improve efficiency of their work. 59% thinks that it's going to help them be able to personalize and adapt their instructions. 51% of them think that it's going to improve the quality of what they are doing. And I just want to take the opportunity to let us think about these as an opportunity for us to re-examine the value we attach to what we ask students to do in our courses. We need to think about what do we want students to learn and why do we want them to learn that? And I think these considerations should probably be at the base of what we are thinking about. And along with those, we need to also think about are those values, skills, and competencies still relevant today and for their future workplace? So that these are the first set of questions. Then the second set of questions that I wanted to think about is what are the things that ChatGPT are good at and what can't it do? And how do we leverage those benefits of ChatGPT in our courses? We have heard, instructors do talk about spending too much time in classroom teaching students about some basic concepts and information, factual informations. And as such, they do not have the time to teach about higher order skills, things like analyzing, evaluating, and decision-making, and even problem solving. One recommendation could be that ChatGPT could do the heavy lifting and students can use that tool for some of their basic concepts, get familiarized with some of the definition of terms, concepts, and help them to explore the understanding of some of these concepts. And then faculty can come in and have students discuss those things that they found out. And that can help, augment, the work that faculty does. Thinking about ChatGPT as an extra hand in a classroom, and to provide some more individualized learning. It can also be a very good idea generation tool. In doing my dissertation, I did a study on system modeling. And when I did a qualitative interview with the students, one of the things that they did say, and these are all engineering students, they said they have issues on knowing where to start problem solving. They don't know how to jumpstart that process. And they are always thinking about, so where do I start solving this problem from? I think ChatGPT could be a tool that can help bridge that gap, help students get those initial impetus, and then let them keep going with their problem solving skills. And I think those are some things that ways that I think ChatGPT can help. In this same survey, this quick poll from EduCourse, they also did ask faculty members about their concerns. And of course, the biggest concern is about academic integrity. 75% thinks this is a big issue. 68% thinks that students could be over-reliance on AI output. And 68% also think that sometimes the output can be inaccurate. While only 15% thinks that we are going to lose our jobs. So what does this mean? So faculty, although they do express this concern about academic integrity in regards to ChatGPT, which is a legitimate concern, but I would like us to look at it in a different perspective. With thinking about some proactive measures and strategies that we can implement in our class. For example, firstly, there is a need for us to change a mindset about cheating. Glant, who is a very popular researcher in academic integrity, this suggests that we might need to change the focus from thinking about how do we stop students from cheating to how do we ensure students are learning. So the emphasis should be student learning and not thinking about how do we stop them from cheating. Because if they learn, what we know is if students can connect meaningfully to the content, they will be less likely to cheat in our classrooms. The second point is there need to be an extensive conversation with students about what academic integrity means in our classroom. And this conversation starts with making them understand the importance of accountability and the importance of how academic integrity How does that affect their future, their career, the discipline? And this conversation should be ongoing. It should be stated in the syllabus. It should be an ongoing conversation in the classroom. And my third point, before I hand over the mic, is our faculty also need to think about how to implement in alternative assessments. Alternative assessments are assessment that is assessing students, things that they can do, things that they can demonstrate. And I think Dr. Amri did mention project-based learning. There are some other different kind of strategies as well. So there's a need to shift. There might be a need to shift away from the traditional high-stake exams into something that involves students doing some more things with their hands, in the classroom, and maybe some more active learning strategies as well.
Thank you, Dr. Mita. Ashley, my next question touches on what was already asked in the chat. She's wondering, does NDUS or NDSU in particular, I suppose, have any policies related to AI and online classes? And then like kind of an outcropping of that as well, just are we putting things in our syllabus, and are any of you putting things in your syllabi around AI and academic integrity? And I'm just wondering if any members of the panel want to address that.
Yeah, maybe I can jump in just quickly. So one of the things I would like to point out, I've used ChatGPT quite a bit. Usually it gets things backwards. I have a cousin who actually did a study whether ChatGPT could at this point pass an introductory physics class. And with a lot of help from a tutor, it could possibly get a C, but it's more likely it would get a D. So, this is not the kind of tool that a publisher, there were publisher tools mentioned that are based on AI and actually really help in teaching. ChatGPT is not that. I think for STEM classes, I can see that for a pure writing class, it's a real concern. For a STEM class, if the answer that ChatGPT gives is an answer to a question that technically that would be a little bit concerning, because yes, it will use the right kinds of words and it will make it sound smooth, but any of my experiences has been that it's sort of the freshman from hell who does get everything backwards and tries to get through by just mentioning the right words in smooth talk. So I think we have to be careful not to underestimate just how terrible some of the answers are. So that was probably not the answer that you were looking for. You were looking more for the ones, do we want to discourage it? But at this point, to the extent that this is about answering questions that involve reasoning, there are some other issues that can be worse. I think one of the reasons why I do want to make that point is that if we encourage students to get answers from ChatGPT, we might actually encourage them to use information, make something sound good that isn't, and that's its own risk. So there is a lot else to answer, but I'll just leave that to other panelists.
If I can jump in, I think that these concerns are viable, and I don't think we are all disputing it, but I don't think it's gonna go away. I think we'll be naive to think that we're gonna wake up tomorrow and ChatGPT will be gone. We're probably gonna have more of them. But the question is, how do we work with it? How do we, even though we do identify some of those weaknesses, how do we, the other day I was looking at some data of another study. I think it was from study.com. It did about survey about 1,000 students and asked them about whether they have ever used ChatGPT or they are aware of it. And you'll be surprised that over 89% of the students that responded to that survey did say they have used ChatGPT in their homework assignments, and they have used it in some form in their classroom. So our students are using it. So the only thing is we need to call their attention to those weaknesses. You can't over rely on these things. It does make mistakes. always these kind of models are always based on the inputs. They say garbage in, garbage out. So it's pulling data from online, and we do know that some of this data might be biased, might not represent very, very good cultural context. But we need to have the conversations with our colleagues and our faculty members.
So I feel this would be very difficult for to make unified standard policy for the whole university. It should be very personalized, for each course, for each professor, is each subject to think about that, the nature of the course. Sometimes for high level, say graduate courses, you want the students to use ChatGPT as an assistant. And at the same time, they should understand, ChatGPT may give you misinformation about how to pick the right thing from, all the answers and find the convincing part, the source. But for some courses, for example, for programming and my high-level programming courses, I ask students, feel free to use whatever, you can use ChatGPT, you can copy-paste from online, but you need to acknowledge them, and you need to understand why you can put this piece of code there. But for some other courses, for example, the entry level, so for example, let students do sort the numbers, from small to larger. If that is course, students ChatGPT do it can be, waste their time on, this is very basic thing they should think by themselves. So there's no unique answer for policies. I feel, it's very specific to the core subject.
Yeah, I have one more follow-up on that too. It was mentioned earlier, should there be a way of citing ChatGPT? I strongly believe that would be wrong-headed to do that, because ChatGPT does not give its sources. The things that you get back that when you ask ChatGPT a question were written by somebody, and we have no idea whom. And in fact, we had a classroom discussion in my social implications class on the topic of Midjourney, which is the image, one of the image equivalents of ChatGPT, like DALL-E. And I have never had a case where students suggest, so I have a discussion in every class, but that was the only time that students suggested a discussion topic and had very strong opinions on it, was about the intellectual property as it related to Midjourney, and I mean that translates pretty much exactly to ChatGPT. There were artists in the room and who said it's completely unacceptable that these companies go out, they scrape everything from the web, they don't care what the intellectual property rules are on those. They will just scrape everything that's out there, use it, and provide no reference back. So, I mean, for that reason alone, I mean, if you get an answer from ChatGPT, do keep in mind, this is not something that ChatGPT thought up. This is an amalgam of things that human beings, many of them professors, wrote and get zero credit for. So, I mean, I think if we go overboard in recommending this as a tool, one of the things we have to realize, we are encouraging plagiarism. And I'm not talking about students taking things from ChatGPT that they should have written themselves, but ChatGPT taking things from writers without acknowledgement, credit, any recognition of intellectual property on this.
Any other questions from the audience?
This is Jerry. I don't know if it's a question or comment. In order to use this AI or ChatGPT in the classroom, maybe university can document some hands-on process or guidelines in order to use. For example, on my side, I'm part of a national committee organize a forum on how we use the ChatGPT for construction education. So this is an ongoing process. We are planning for that for right now. So for construction education, if not everybody is familiar with, typically we educate students how you take care using the bidding process, calculate cost, or using different technology method to build any project like a building on campus. We also take care of the contract. Often when we teach those courses, and we have to use some achievement project or use a partial of real project. Now, when students do practice this in the classroom, they need input. They need some information from a designer, information from an engineer for their construction manager rules. They need to make one step. They need new input. Similarly, the real world, we have the issue, how we solve the issue. Usually, we need to hook up with the industry people to provide those data input. However, they are time limited and a lot of conflict, and they are available or we have classroom. Now with this ChatGPT, so we just put what we need there, the system, the general data, although a little bit away from the real project, but still good enough for our students to use the data to move to the next step. So we are doing those. We try to gather all the practice from nationwide construction education professionals, along with the industry people, try with other national firm and that. I think we need something like that in order to use. Otherwise, we talk about the AI, but how we use it for education, because our focus on education is not like doing AI research here. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Jerry. So talking about how our individual disciplines can leverage it as a tool. John asked a question. Is there a degree where you're going into a field that has a greater chance that you'd be exposed to different forms of AI? He's in strategic communication. If anyone on the panel wants to take that.
I think any field involved that's related to languages, whether it's human languages or computer languages, are going to be significantly affected. And actually, ChatGPT has 175 billion parameters. And for instance, the next generation is going to have 100 trillion. So I think we should see an exponential improvement. That's what I expect in terms of capacity. And even though ChatGPT has still a lot of limitations, but I think for the average student, the output that it produces is, I think, unfortunately, is above average, I think.
I can also kind of add to that. Engineers will be also exposed to a lot of different forms of AI. It's entering manufacturing a lot, for the AI to track parts, monitor trends, and identify whether a part needs to be rejected or get back in line or stuff like that. So not necessarily helping with development of AI, but actually applications and using of an AI in manufacturing is also a big trend now. So,
yeah. So we have been working with health projects using AI for disease prediction, send warnings to patients based on the history, the data from, the wearable sensors. And we have personalized education for patients, even for doctors, and have Asper systems designed, to convert Asper doctors' expertise into logic and to semantics.
We apologize that our panel discussion today was cut short. The NDSU Office of Teaching and Learning intends to continue the discussion of the use of artificial intelligence in the classroom as the future of AI unfolds. In fact, fall 23, we will be hosting a faculty learning community to explore the potential uses for AI in the classroom that support both instruction and learning. Thank you for joining us today.